Life has a way of making us feel like we are stuck, like we are trapped in a cycle of hardship, disappointment, or struggle with no way out. It's easy to look at our circumstances and think, this is just how it's always going to be. The enemy would love for us to believe that the challenges we're facing are permanent, that nothing is going to change, that we're destined to stay in the same place forever. But the truth is, what you're going through right now is not the final chapter of your story. The situation you see today is only temporary. That financial struggle, that illness, that loneliness, that delay, it may feel overwhelming, but it is not your destiny. It is simply a season, and seasons always change. Just like winter eventually turns into spring, your struggle will turn into strength, your lack will turn into abundance, and your sorrow will turn into joy. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, thrown into prison, and forgotten. Everything around him screamed, this is your life now. You'll never get out. You'll never fulfill your dreams. But what Joseph didn't realize was that his situation was not permanent. God was using every setback as a setup for something greater. One moment he was in a prison cell, and the next he was standing in the palace as the second in command over all of Egypt. The season of struggle was temporary, but the promotion was permanent. Sometimes we look at our lives and think, I've been in this situation too long, nothing is changing. But what we don't see is that God is working behind the scenes. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean the breakthrough isn't in motion. The enemy wants to keep you discouraged because he knows if you believe your struggle is permanent, you'll stop expecting things to change. But the moment you start believing that God is still working, that things can shift at any moment, you position yourself for the breakthrough. One of the most challenging things in life is feeling like nothing is happening. You've prayed, you've believed, you've done everything you know to do, and yet the situation seems the same. No signs of change, no open doors, no breakthrough in sight. It's easy in those moments to wonder, God, where are you? Do you even hear me? But just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God is not working. Think about a seed planted deep in the soil. For weeks it looks like nothing is happening. The ground looks the same. If you judged it by what you could see, you'd think the seed was dead. But under the surface, something powerful is taking place. The roots are growing, the seed is breaking open, and at the right time, it pushes through the soil, and what was hidden becomes visible. That's how God works. Just because you don't see anything on the surface doesn't mean things aren't shifting beneath the surface. Right now, He's lining up the right people, arranging the right opportunities, moving in ways you cannot see. You may not realize it, but prayers you prayed months ago, years ago, are still in motion. Just because the answer hasn't shown up yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. Look at Esther in the Bible. She was just a Jewish girl, unknown, unnoticed. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, God was orchestrating events to put her in the palace, to position her to save an entire nation. She didn't see the details coming together, but God was working behind the curtain, moving one piece at a time. The king just happened to remove his queen at the exact time Esther was being prepared. The king just happened to hold a beauty contest where Esther was chosen. Mordecai just happened to overhear a plot against the king that later led to favor for the Jewish people. None of it was coincidence. It was God working behind the scenes, putting everything in place for the right moment. Right now, you might feel overlooked, forgotten, or like nothing is changing, but God is moving in ways beyond your understanding. He is setting things up that you can't even imagine. He is softening hearts, shifting circumstances, opening doors that no one can shut. Sometimes He works suddenly, And other times He works silently. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Your miracle is already in motion. There are moments in life when it feels like nothing is happening. You pray, you believe, you do everything you know to do, but it seems like God is silent. You look around and nothing is changing. The situation at work is still the same. The medical report hasn't improved. The relationship is still broken. In those moments, it's easy to wonder, God, do you even hear me? Are you even doing anything? But just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean that God isn't working. God does His greatest work behind the scenes. He is moving, shifting, arranging things in your favor in ways you cannot see. Just like a seed planted underground, there is activity happening even when it looks like nothing is changing. The roots are growing, the foundation is being established, and at the right time, what was hidden will break through the surface. Think about Esther in the Bible. She didn't realize it at the time, but long before she ever stepped into the palace, God was already working behind the scenes for her promotion and for the deliverance of her people. She was just an ordinary girl, but God was orchestrating every step. He positioned her in the right place at the right time. When a plot was formed to destroy her people, God had already placed her in the palace to be their answer. What looked like an ordinary life was actually a divine setup. In the same way, God is setting things up for you. He is putting the right people in place, lining up the right opportunities, shifting things in your favor. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Some of the greatest miracles don't start with something spectacular. They start in the unseen places. The right person hears your name in a meeting. A door that has been closed suddenly swings open. An opportunity you weren't even looking for presents itself. Think about a stage play. When you're watching a performance, you see one scene playing out, but behind the curtain, people are moving props, changing backdrops, preparing the next scene. You may not see it, but the next part of the story is already being arranged. That's what God is doing in your life. He is preparing the next scene, shifting things that you don't even know about, setting you up for something greater than you can imagine. The key is to trust that even when it feels like nothing is happening, everything is happening in the unseen. We all have moments when we feel like things are taking too long. We pray for a breakthrough, but nothing changes. We believe for a dream to come to pass, but doors remain closed. It's easy to start wondering, God, did I miss it? Is this ever going to happen? The waiting season can feel frustrating, and if we're not careful, we'll mistake delay for denial. But just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. A delay is not a no, it's simply a not yet. God's timing is always perfect. He knows what we need, when we need it, and how to bring it to pass in a way that will bless us the most. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually divine protection. Think about Lazarus. When Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother was sick, they expected him to come immediately. But the Bible says Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days. Can you imagine how they felt? They probably thought, why isn't he coming? Doesn't he care? He's healing strangers, but he won't come for his own friends. At the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. It looked like it was too late. But what they didn't realize was that the delay wasn't a denial. It was a setup for a greater miracle. If Jesus had come immediately, Lazarus would have been healed. But because of the delay, he was raised from the dead. The miracle was even greater than what they originally asked for. Sometimes we ask God for something small, but He delays the answer because He wants to give us something bigger. The waiting is not wasted time. It's preparation time. When you don't see anything happening, when it feels like doors are closed, don't get discouraged. God is getting you ready for something greater. Your words have creative power. What you speak over your life, over your family, over your future, it matters. Too often we allow our words to reflect our circumstances instead of shaping them. We talk about how bad things are, how we're never going to get out of debt, how our health isn't improving, how our dreams seem impossible. But what we don't realize is that our words are setting the direction of our lives. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." That means every time you speak, you are either speaking life or speaking death over your situation. You are either planting seeds of faith or seeds of doubt. You may not see the effect immediately, but every word is like a seed going into the ground, and eventually you will eat the fruit of what you have spoken. In the book of Ezekiel, God took the prophet to a valley filled with dry bones. It looked like a place of total defeat, dead, lifeless, beyond hope. But God didn't tell Ezekiel to cry over the bones. He didn't tell him to complain or accept the situation is final. He told him to prophesy, to speak life over what looked dead. As Ezekiel obeyed, as he declared the word of the Lord, the bones began to come together. Tendons and flesh appeared, and breath entered them. What was once dead came back to life, all because of the power of spoken words. What areas of your life look dry and hopeless? Maybe it's your health, your finances, your relationships. Maybe you feel like your dreams have been buried. God is telling you today, speak life over it. Prophesy your victory. Declare that things are shifting in your favor. Instead of saying, "I'll never get out of this mess," start saying, "God is making a way for me. Favor is coming. Doors are opening." Instead of saying, "I'm stuck in this sickness," declare, "By His stripes I am healed. Strength is coming. Health is being restored." Instead of saying, "I'll never accomplish my dreams," declare, "I am equipped, anointed, and called. What God started in me, He will finish." Jesus said in Mark 11:23, "If you speak to the mountain and tell it to move and do not doubt, it will be done." Notice He didn't say think about the mountain or wish it would move. He said to speak to it. Your words have the power to move obstacles, to shift circumstances, to bring dead things back to life. Even when nothing looks like it's changing, keep speaking life. Even when the situation seems impossible, keep declaring victory. Your words are seeds, and if you keep speaking faith, in due time, you will see the harvest. When you set out to do something great, to follow God's calling, or to step into a new season, don't be surprised when opposition comes. Resistance is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's often confirmation that you're on the right one. The enemy doesn't waste his time attacking people who aren't a threat. If you're facing pressure, challenges, or unexpected setbacks, it's because you're close to something significant. Think about when a woman is in labor. The closer she gets to delivering the baby, the more intense the pain becomes. The contractions get stronger, the discomfort increases, and the pressure rises. But all of it is a sign that the birth is about to happen. In the same way, the pressure in your life may not mean defeat. It may mean you're on the verge of a breakthrough. In the Bible, when the Israelites were about to enter the promised land, that's when they faced some of their biggest opposition. Giants were in the land. Walls were standing in their way. Enemies rose up against them. They could have thought, if God was really with us, why is this so hard? But the truth is, the enemy was fighting so hard because he knew they were close. If they had turned back, if they had let the opposition intimidate them, they would have never walked into the land flowing with milk and honey. That's why when you face challenges, you can't shrink back. The enemy wouldn't be coming against you if you weren't about to step into something greater. The struggle isn't proof that God has left you. It's proof that He is about to take you to a new level. Look at Nehemiah. God put it on his heart to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. The moment he started, Opposition showed up. People mocked him, threatened him, tried to discourage him, and did everything they could to stop the work. Why? Because the enemy knew that if Nehemiah completed the wall, it would restore strength, protection, and identity to God's people. The opposition wasn't random. It was a direct attack on his purpose in your own life. The resistance you're feeling isn't just about the challenge in front of you. It's about the destiny inside of you. The enemy is trying to wear you down, to get you to quit before you reach what God has prepared for you. He knows that if you keep going, if you push past the obstacles, you will step into something greater than you imagine. David faced his greatest opposition right before stepping into his destiny. Goliath wasn't just an obstacle. He was the last thing standing between David and the throne. If David had run away, if he had let fear hold him back, he would have never stepped into his calling as king. But instead of seeing opposition as a sign to quit, David saw it as an opportunity to rise. The same is true for you. The pressure is a sign that promotion is coming. The resistance is an indication that you're closer than you think. Giants don't guard empty land. They only stand in front of something valuable. If you're facing opposition, don't let it intimidate you. Let it confirm that you're right where you need to be. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. Bad news, sudden delays, unfair situations. The natural response is to worry, to stress, to go into panic mode, trying to figure everything out. But God never asked us to live in panic. He called us to live in peace. Jesus said in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." That means peace is a gift. It's already been given to you, but you have to choose to receive it. Too often, we let circumstances dictate our peace. If things are going well, we're at peace. If we get bad news, we lose our peace. But real peace isn't based on what's happening around you. It's based on trusting who is in control. When the disciples were in the boat, a huge storm arose. The waves were crashing, the wind was blowing, and the boat was filling with water. They started to panic, thinking they were about to drown. But while they were in a panic, Jesus was asleep in the boat. The storm didn't wake him up. The waves didn't shake him. He was at peace in the middle of the chaos. When the disciples finally woke him up, Jesus rebuked the storm and then asked them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" In other words, you didn't have to panic. I was with you the whole time. The same is true for you. God is with you in the storm. He's not pacing back and forth in heaven, wondering how things are going to work out. He's not surprised by what you're facing. He already has a solution, already has a way forward, already has the right people, the right opportunity, the right breakthrough lined up.